I'm going to give you a very short talk on this big topic of inventing the universe. So the story starts a little bit with the core mission of the company I work for. And the core mission is to make virtual worlds more meaningful than real life. It's a big provocation because there's endless debate within the company. Why not as meaningful? Why more meaningful? What is real life? Opens up many questions. Story actually goes back quite far. So in 1992, 20 years ago, a bunch of kids in Iceland, me included, we wanted to create the metaverse. We were using VRML technology to create the metaverse. Quickly found out nobody needed the metaverse, at least not back then. We made another company to try to make some sense of it called SmartVR. Then we created CCP, we created EVE Online, we did a bunch of experiments with virtual reality, and now we're trying to figure out what we can learn from those 30 years of trying and how we can do even better in the next 30 years. All of this is inspired by this book, Snow Crash by Neil Stephenson. Here is kind of what it looked like when we started. This is the VRML browser or virtual. You could be an alien, you could be whatever, you see the street, you can, anything you could imagine, you could create. It was a little bit like Minecraft creative mode. And because it was like Minecraft creative mode, anyone that's played Minecraft doesn't really have a lot of meaning. So we came up with EVE Online. EVE Online is kind of Minecraft survival mode. There's an economy, there's physics, everything else, everything in the world is hard work. Also looks much better. And it's somewhat inspired by this. If you wish to make an apple pie from scratch, you must first invent the universe. It's an excellent quote. Gives you a lot of respect for how well the universe is created. It's a high bar to do something more meaningful. But we wanted to create this framework where people could tell big stories. And the biggest story we could think of is kind of the Bible. Bible is the killer app for the printed press. About 5 billion copies have been printed. So the game is called Eve, the setting is called New Eden. First version of the game is called the Second Genesis. No small things, we're 20 years old in Iceland. EVE Online has a story, you can choose what you want to do. It's very open-ended, it's a sandbox to create your own stories. And it's built on a fairly rudimentary digital physics of sorts. It's a far cry from our physics of reality, but it actually puts us on a big quest on figuring out why the physics of reality are so interesting. So talking about physicists, about how we can recreate it digitally is one of my favorite pastimes. Here are some of the stories that have come out of this operating system that have kind of taken care of itself. We harvested 5,000 stories for EVE players 10 years ago, and if we put an AI to source what it does, here are kind of the emotions that arise from this storytelling engine that is EVE. And we think a lot about, okay, how do we evolve EVE? And now that we have this understanding, at least some experience, of creating a universe, what would we create? Would we create utopia? Would we create something that meets the values of the West, values of Jesus, etc.? We've come up with this. To generate happiness, you need three things. You need something to hope for, you need somebody to love, and you need something to do. Here's kind of what it looks like in our own sort of product management science. We've broken this down into various initiatives where we have hundreds of people working along this path to try to make a better job. And ultimately, the question is, why does a very dystopic world, EVE Online is a very dystopic world, it's about death and destruction. Why does it create so much beauty? And why does it create so many friendships? We found out after running the experiment for about 15 years that EVE Online is a friendship generation machine. And friendship, as per the three pillars of happiness, someone to love, is a big deal. And it's kind of dying out in the world. The epidemic of loneliness is really destroying health, happiness, and hope for the future. People have self-reported fewer friends today than they did 20 years ago when we started this experiment. Not so much for EVE players. If we ask EVE players, 73% of them tell us that they have made a friend because of EVE Online. That has led us onto the science of figuring out how you make a friend. There's a formula for it. This is the formula. And a key element of the formula is intensity. So in this capitalistic future dystopia that is EVE Online taking place 20,000 years from now, where everything is harsh and evil, friendship emerges. So it is a little bit to think about when you think about our world today, and we heard some outlook here where people are not very positive about the future. These might be the times where the most beauty arises. So let's not be down on it, let's have hope. If you can have friendships come from a futuristic capitalistic space game made in Iceland, we certainly can too on this planet. Thank you.